This is Jennifer J. Palumbo, IVF Babel correspondent. I'm here with one of my most favorite people, Lisa Schuman, LCSW. What does the LCSW stand for?
Licensed clinical social work.
Oh my God. Okay. And she is a leading expert in family building, has helped people worldwide. And this is not a formal intro, but I just want to add, I've known Lisa for several years, and her talent is, to me, so unique. She has such a unique perception about donor conception, third-party reproductive family building, and she brings so much to the table. I don't know how you're not more fertility famous. I mean, people know you, they definitely know you, but I don't know how you don't have your own show on Lifetime Network or anything like that. But the one thing, and we'll talk about it in a bit, but one of the biggest things I'm a fan of that you did is the Life book, because, and we'll talk about that in a second, but the Life book really showcases how insightful Lisa is, how well she knows that journey, and how it can be beautiful, even if it's not the plan that you had in mind to build your family. It may have been, it may not have been, but it's just a beautiful way of supporting that. Sometimes it's not if you can be a parent, it's just how. So that's my informal introduction. But you've been like on the board of everything. Can you talk a little bit more about your fertility journey, both professionally and personally, if you're comfortable?
Sure. Well, first of all, you're one of my favorite people, Jay, of course, and multi-talented. And so I really value our friendship and our professional relationship. You're just such a pleasure to talk to. So thank you for having me on this show. I really appreciate it. And yes, I have. So I've been working in the fertility industry for over 2 decades, probably about 25 years now. And it did start as a journey that I had through fertility treatment myself way back when medicine was completely different. I mean, it's, seems a little archaic, almost like the time of dinosaurs in some ways. Treatment was so different and so difficult in different ways than it is now. And so I became a specialist in this myself because I wanted to help people have an easier journey to parenthood than I did, and help people in all different ways, all the people that I care for, all the people that I knew that were single moms to be or LGBTQ parents to be. I really wanted to help everyone that meant something to me and, in the world have equal opportunities to build their families. And so I've really fought very hard. As you know, I was the only therapist asked to testify for to compensate for the compensated surrogacy bill, which passed this year and just recently in February. And that was really an honor to be able to do that and to testify about why it was so important for New York to have this law passed. So I've been working in surrogacy for some time, and I've been working in fertility treatment for some time. I've written papers on everything from IVF to egg freezing to LGBTQ issues, and I've published quite a lot of papers. I've won some awards for my research through the American Society for Reproductive Medicine and the Pacific Coast Society for Reproductive Medicine as well. And so I've done lots of things. And my most favorite moments are when I help patients, when I help people find answers to their problems, because in the end, all of these things that I'm doing are really exciting and fantastic. But the most important thing for me is to be able to help someone have an easier journey to parenthood. And so because of that, after decades and decades of doing this, seeing the same issues over and over again, I just decided I'm going to form my own group. And through that group, I can help people on a wider scale. I can help people find solutions to problems that they don't even know that they have sometimes, and be able to help them pursue a journey that's easiest for them. I just got off the phone with someone this morning who I helped her. She had so many difficulties through fertility treatment, and now she's going to be having an embryo transfer soon with a donor egg and a donor sperm. So I really love seeing that happen. And I love being able to give people tools to move forward. And so my life book is one of those tools, and I can show one to you if you'd like. I really love being able to give people something that they can hold on to. I run workshops for donor conceived children. It's called the Tip Top program. It's a program that I've been running for years.
Is it for the kids or the parents of donor conceived children, or both?
So it's for the parents and the kids. And what it does is it helps families understand how children can disclose to other people. So when parents are going through this, what's very important for them is to understand if you're using donor sperm or donor egg, how are you going to talk to your children about their story, which is very important. But then at some point, the children are going to have to decide, do I tell my best friend? Do I tell my teacher? How am I going to relay this information? And there's so many variables that go into making that decision. And so what we do is we teach these children how to understand what's important to them about their story, how they can understand their own personality, because, just like adults, some kids are introverts, some kids are extroverts, some kids, like to tell the world everything, and some kids, are really private. So it's important to appreciate your own temperament and your point of view, but then also to factor in who the audience is, because you might be a different person with your teacher than you are with your best friend, right? And so we teach children to understand all of those things, and then we give them tools to be able to share their information with people in a way that works for them. And then we work with the parents and educate them about what their children need to know, what they know already, how to kind of help them down this road. And so that way we can really help the parents be the children's allies in their road to self-discovery and in their road to sharing this information. So it's
in
great.
your experience, is this a conversation that's being had more now, like more than ever, or there's really no real change since donor conception first came on the scene, so to speak?
It's changed quite a bit, actually. Years ago, there was lots of discussion about whether or not people should tell their children if they were donor conceived. And it's very interesting because it really kind of followed the adoption pathway in the US. We had, a number of people in the US who were adopted in the 50s. And so we had decades of research on them. And what happened with them was very similar, that in the beginning, nobody told their children. And then later they started to tell them a little bit, but later. And then what we discovered is that it really is best to tell them in the crib for two reasons. One, because you have an opportunity to practice yourself and get comfortable with that story, which is typically uncomfortable for a lot of people. And you don't want to hem and haw in front of your child because they're going to say, why are my parents acting so weird around this topic? You want to feel comfortable with it. And you want it to be able to roll off your tongue. And so if you rehearse in front of your child, you have this opportunity to practice your story over and over before they know what you're talking about. And so it becomes very comfortable. And then you also don't have this moment where you have to sit down with your child and say, okay, little Susie, we have something to tell you, because little Susie always knows. So in the adoption world, that's really what we saw evolve. In donor conception, we've started to think about whether or not biology had something to do with it, because it's different than adoption, of course, and there are some different issues. And so some researchers started to look at whether or not that adoption model works for donor conceived children as well. And it's kind of a long story about the way the research unraveled. But basically, yes, the answer is that it is best to start as early as possible.
And do you ever talk to, I know you work with a lot of LGBTQIA plus couples. I was at that one conference with you, which was so wonderful. Just because the questions people asked, they were excited about starting their families and learning more about the process. And it was really, anyone I feel like who doesn't support LGBTQIA families, I feel like they should go to one of those conferences, because they're just like any other couple. They're,
Mhm.
you know, happy in love. They're excited to start their family. It was really, I thought, inspirational. So I know you work with a lot of gay couples, but do you ever work with people who are on the, like, I always go back to, I don't know if you ever saw Vegas Baby. There's this one couple in there. If you haven't seen it, see it. I'm in it, but that's not why I'm recommending it. But there's this one couple
Have
who
to
I
see it.
think about often where she had lost her family at an early age in a car accident. So her father and brothers were killed, and her mother and her survived. Her husband, who she married, was adopted. So he grew up adopted. She is not getting pregnant using her own eggs. And because of her background, she's so tied to it has to be a genetic baby. The baby, you know, she wants a boy. She's like, maybe the baby will look like one of my brothers or my father. And the husband's like, well, I'm adopted. Who cares? Like, let's use either donor eggs or adopt. And as far as I know, they still are trying to conceive through IVF, and they haven't pursued these other routes. So I'm curious, have you ever worked with couples like that where maybe one is for using, you know, donor conception, the other one is not ready to accept it?
Yes, a lot. And what I find is that when people decide that their interest in parenting kind of overwhelms their interest in having a genetically related child, they start to think about other options. And
Yeah,
it is very hard to wrap your mind around it. I have, you know, patients who say to me, and of course this is, heterosexual people with infertility, because, gay couples don't have the same pain around it, right? Because it's not about their infertility.
right.
But heterosexual couples with infertility problems and, women can have a lot of difficulty, and women in particular, although men who have donor sperm issues have difficulty too, but women have a lot of heartache over this. And some women, I see, they say, if I need to bake a cake, it doesn't matter if it comes from Betty Crocker mix, or if I bake it from scratch, the cake's going to taste the same, right?
Yeah.
But then I have another patient that I've been seeing for a long time, and through her whole fertility process, through her pregnancy, and up until she had this baby, she struggled with this idea about whether she's going to connect to the child or not. She really felt like, I'm not going to be able to connect to this child. What am I going to do? And so what she did was she changed her child's name. After she named her child, she changed her child's name, because for her, that was the only way that she felt she could take ownership over her child,
Mhm.
is to find the right name. So that was what she needed. But, and that's kind of the other extreme. And then everyone else is kind of somewhere in between. But there is a process of trying to wrap your mind around this idea that you're going to use somebody else's genetics to have a baby. And it can be very difficult. But everyone that I meet, everyone gets through it. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard, but everybody gets through it.
And in terms of what your future initiatives are around this topic, because Lisa's like, I think you wake up at like 5 a.m., maybe earlier.
Mhm. Yep, early 4 a.m. this morning. It was
I know.
crazy,
I'm always
crazy.
amazed at people who wake up early. I'm not a good, yeah, I'm a night owl. But you have so much going on. You have the life book, you're in the middle of writing a book, but you're also um, going to be doing online workshops. Can you talk to what are some of your initiatives that you have planned if people want to get involved in any of them?
Yeah, great. So yes, I'd love to. So I'm starting pre-registration for a donor conception support group. So we will be putting that information on my Instagram page. It's the Center for Family Building on Instagram. And you can also find it on my website. And if you have difficulty finding it, just email me at lisa@familybuilding.net, or sign up for a free 15-minute consultation on my website, which is www.familybuilding.net. And we can talk about it as much as you like. So that's those are all options. We will be launching a excuse me, a video program excuse me, at some point in the next month or two about donor conception. I have lots of great videos available on my website, a couple for purchase, but many for free that anyone can access. And I'm also going to be doing a few workshops on the life book and how to put together a life book, how to chronicle the journey for yourself and your partner so that you can give this to your child. So can I show it to you for a moment?
Yeah, I was actually going to say, while you're doing that, yeah, I was going to say the life book really, so because of my own infertility struggle, I'm involved in several infertility groups. And one of the things that comes up a lot is either baby books for donor conception, or they get very insecure. I don't know why every school does this. They do a family tree project. And there was this one conversation I saw in one of the groups I'm in where those who built their families either through adoption or donor conception, they were like, oh God, like to do this family tree project. But the life book addresses all of that, but also destigmatizes it too. So I just wanted to add that because I'm such a big fan of this book, but yeah, let's see it.
Oh, thank you, Jay. Yeah, so this is it. So the idea is, and as I said, I run workshops for donor conceived children. And so it's really important to help your child understand their narrative. And you can do it through lots of books about donor sperm, donor eggs. There are ways to talk about it in metaphor, ways to talk about it in the storybook form. But also children, I find, like to have a story of their own. So, you would start in a very basic way, talking about the way that you started your journey. And then, excuse me, maybe something about how you met, what your life was like before. Maybe you put your doctor's business cards in here or something from your sperm bank or from your egg donor agency. And then you can talk about the child's background. So this is not like one of those books about, a baby book about, how many times your kid's pooping a day. This is really about before the journey, right? So it talks all about the things that are important to you and what people said and how everyone was so excited for you. And then you get into things like Jay's talking about, the family tree. So
I love that page.
Thank you. So I intentionally made this so that it's not, there's some books that are very heteronormative out there. So this is really something for everyone. You can put the parents here. You can put the single parent and the egg donor. You can put two parents and the surrogate and the egg donor here. You can put the whole family here. So your children understand this idea that there are roots to the tree. There are genetics, and that is important, but the whole family is really what makes the family. So there may be the roots, but the whole family is what's really important to think about.
And so I got mine on Amazon. I don't know if it's still being sold on Amazon, but I got mine on Amazon.
Yes, it is. It's sold on Amazon.
And it doesn't have, I have it somewhere, but doesn't it have an envelope also in the back to put like mementos in and all of that?
Yes, yeah. I was just showing that you could put that in.
That's the doctor cards thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, right in here.
If you're like me, well, not that I'm a hoarder, but I saved a lot. I have 2 boxes in my closet for my sons that I'll put like child's projects in. I'm always thinking about, like in the future. So I have these 2 boxes and one has, one son's name on it, the other one has the other. And anything that I think is worth keeping, like their baby blankets, I'm probably going to give this to them when they're a teenager and they're going to be like,
right, who
what
needs
the
it,
hell
Mom?
is this?
Right.
But I like it. It's really nice. Anyway,
That's wonderful.
but I think too, particularly with donor conception or gestational or working with a gestational carrier, I do think it normalizes it. And the book is so beautiful that it shows how much, at least I hope, to the child, how much they're wanted,
Yes, absolutely. And, as I said before, some children are very outgoing and some kids are very private. And so you don't know what's going on in your child's head sometimes, and your child might be interested in getting information about their donor. Maybe they don't feel like talking about it, but then they can, go over to their bookcase and pull this out and get information on their own. And that's really empowering for a child to be able to have some control over that information themselves as well. So I think it's a really, really nice thing to have.
What do you think, in your experience, is the biggest misconception of around either third-party family building or using donor eggs, donor sperm, donor embryos?
Well, it's very interesting that you say that, which I'm seeing a lot of these days. And I don't know why this is coming up so much, but it's happening a lot. And sometimes I think about writing a paper about it. So, I work with donors often and screen donors. And when I meet with them, they often say to me, I'm really concerned that if I decide to have an open relationship with the intended parents, that they would want me in their life, that they would want me to be part of their life. They would want me to have a relationship with their child. And then when I see the intended parents or the recipients, they say,
Yeah.
I'm really worried that my donor is going to want to be involved. I don't want to talk to her because I'm really worried that she's going to want to be involved with my kids. And it's so interesting that
Oh my
both
God.
people have the same fears, and neither are true. Neither of those are true. So
It's
it's
interesting.
very, very interesting.
I wonder when you do, because I didn't pursue donor conception myself, although we were thinking of it because I was not a very good responder. And we get like 13 eggs and then only have like one embryo. But do you think, is that part of the process, or should it be where you're like, because I know with surrogacy, it seems like that is automatically the part of the process. You lay out whether or not you want to have a relationship afterwards, or keep in touch, or send pictures. But I don't know if you have the same open dialogue with using donor eggs or embryos.
Well, that is something I think, just like adoption, that's going to change.
Yeah.
So on the West Coast in the US, there are a lot of clinics that do open donation, where you have an open relationship with your donor, and that's a possibility. If you use an agency, you can always choose that. That's something that's possible for anyone. But on the East Coast, we just don't have as many programs. So I helped to establish a program like that on the East Coast, but there aren't many of them. And I think that's going to change. I think eventually everyone is going to be open. There's no such thing as anonymity in this world. If people want to be anonymous, it's really not possible, because we have 23andMe, there's Ancestry.com, there's just, there's facial recognition on Facebook. So anybody can find anyone. And then I think we're stuck with the problem that because of that, if we want to search at some point, or if our children want to search at some point, we're going to be touching base with somebody who really doesn't want to be found. And so I think that if the setup in the beginning is that everyone understands that there's no such thing as anonymity, then we can all have that option to be open or not, or to be in communication or not, but at least we understand the reality of the situation.
And do you think, like when you hear, do you ever, how do I put this nicely? So one of my friends wrote something about surrogacy recently, and then she gets all these like negative comments about using a gestational carrier and all of that. Do you ever get people from the fertile world at large busting your chops, basically, to put it in a New York Italian way?
What do you mean? In what way?
Like, oh, you're promoting, like, I remember I was involved with this egg freezing initiative. And I remember, and this made no sense to me, by the way, this man wrote, "You're promoting bastards by supporting egg freezing," which,
Wow.
again, that made no sense to me whatsoever. Because egg freezing, I don't see the correlation.
No.
But it just seems like anything with infertility. Even I wrote something about IVF for the Huffington Post once, and people wrote negative comments. I mean, people are so poopy.
Yeah.
But have you ever experienced that, where you have to kind of, I mean, it's annoying.
I'm
You're like
sure.
really helping people, and then you have to maybe occasionally deal with trolls, I guess is what.
Yes. Well, fortunately, I really haven't. I mean, I've had some people, a couple of people say negative things on social media, but not many. I guess I've been fortunate that way. I really haven't had that many. I mean, there are different points of view about donor conception that, I do have a certain point of view on various subjects in donor conception, and not everyone agrees with those points of view. And so I think that, that those sorts of things come out every once in a while, but for the most part, I've been very fortunate, I suppose. I haven't had that happen.
That's good. Because I know I feel like one of the biggest topics that comes up when people are like, and it's exactly what you said earlier, when they decide to pursue this family building path, I feel like one of the biggest things is what are other people going to say? What are my coworkers going to say? What are my parents going to say?
Mhm.
I can only imagine what my mother-in-law would have said if we took that route.
Yes.
And I do wonder if people aren't so affected by others, maybe it would be easier for them, you know?
Mhm.
But I would imagine that comes up a lot when patients are talking to, like, how do I deal with maybe negative questions or ignorant questions?
Yeah. Well, I think donor conception is still, we're still in this world like we were years ago with adoption, where, we're kind of in between two worlds where even though the science is advanced, our social understanding really hasn't, right? And so you may have relatives or friends who are kind of old fashioned, or maybe they, have different points of view about donor conception, or maybe, they won't see the baby as being your baby if you use an egg donor. And
Right,
that can be really hard, right? I mean, they might say, hurtful things, or you might just be sitting around the Thanksgiving table and they're looking at you and looking at the baby and looking at you and trying to see, how you're connected. And it can be really uncomfortable. So I really find that, and this is one of the things that may not be as popular, that even though some people want to be fully open with their friends and family, and certainly without question, it's important to be open with your child, I don't think it's necessary to be open with everyone, because, if the parents or the friends are going to say hurtful things, then it's really not worth it. You want your kids to enjoy their life. You want to enjoy your life with your kids. You want to be busy with soccer practice and ballet classes, and you've had this really long, hard road and want to just be a parent, right? You don't want to have, these relentless questions and obnoxious comments. And so I really feel that if other people are not going to be kind about it, it's better not to tell them about it. And if you don't tell them and they get to know you and get to know your child and fall in love with your child, even if they find out later because you've told your child, it's too late. They already love your kid. They can't go back from not, loving your child. Now they love your child. They have a relationship with your child, and they can't take that away. So I really think people have to be very self-protective when it comes to this.
yeah, I mean, that makes complete sense to me, because I just know when I was just going through IVF, I was hesitant to tell everyone, because I think you want to choose who's going to be supportive and who's maybe not.
Mhm.
And also, there's something to be said for, like, if you're telling everyone to, like, if you're at the grocery store and someone's like, oh, they look just like you, and you're like, no, actually it's a donor.
Right.
You don't need to tell everybody everything.
Exactly, exactly. And also, I think that there is this school of thought that it is a child's story to tell or not to tell. And a lot of people really feel that way, that, your child might get, and they will get to a point where they're going to understand all of this. And they may say, hey, mom, I don't want you to tell my teacher, or I don't like it that your best friend knows because she's, asked me questions all the time, or whatever it is. And so some people really feel like it's a child's story to tell or not to tell. And quite honestly, I think that's what many of the celebrities are doing right now.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh
I
God,
think that's a
that
good
could
way.
be a whole hour about celebrities and donor eggs. Oh my God.
Mhm.
Um, so as we wrap up, if people want to discuss, and we touched on this earlier, there's online workshops. And by the way, Lisa's very generous with, she has a very robust email mailing list newsletter that's really chock full of information. I'm always surprised you are so generous, like, because you can get these newsletters for free, but they're really so helpful and informative. It's the
Thank
Italian in me. I want to charge for everything. Um,
you.
but if someone wants to find you, or is there an upcoming workshop that you think, I mean, certainly the one about donor conceived children, there's a Tip Top program, but are there any specific upcoming events that people can find you and hear your insight?
Yes, so the donor conception group is starting this spring, and we're starting pre-registration now. So absolutely sign up for my newsletter, because as Jay said, I'm you know, I send out lots of information, probably twice a month, so I don't overwhelm anyone, but I send out lots of information, and there's always things that people can watch, videos they can watch, things that they can access. But we're starting pre-registration, so that information will be in my my link tree, and it will also be on my website. And if you have trouble finding it, just go to familybuilding.net and you can email me. You can sign up for a 15-minute pre-consultation. If you have questions, I'm always happy to help. I really want to make everyone's journey easier. That's what, you know, my life is about. I'm really, really on a mission to try to help as many people as possible.
Yeah, and I want to bring home that when I talk or have worked with Lisa on this topic, she always, like, you always have like one or two such insightful and again unique nuggets that I feel like if you're at all considering donor conception and working with a gestational carrier, it's an investment in your sanity and your mental health, and also I think your perspective and how to approach it. There's something in the way you approach the journey that, again, I feel normalizes it and makes it seem like, not that it's not a big deal, but that it can be just as beautiful and rewarding as a more typical family building journey. And I just really love that. And you can tell that from Lisa's social media, from her website. And, you know, and just in hearing her talk, it's like, look, you know, this is a different path, but there's ways to navigate it. And I can help provide, you know, tools and resources and even meditations to help you get through it. Yeah, I mean, anyone who's ever told me they're taking that path, I'm like, you have to find Lisa Schuman. Find her, because she will help you. So as I'm gonna end, but is there any like just final words of advice for someone who's considering this path, or just any words of wisdom you want to mention to those thinking of building their family through donor conception?
Yeah, so I also have, I neglected to mention, I do have a great staff. I'm very careful about the therapists that we hire at the Center for Family Building, and our therapists are great and really focus on different things. And so you can find someone who's perfect for you if you need individual counseling, and you want to have somebody hold your hand through the process of choosing a donor or talking to donor conceived children or anything else. You know, we have a terrific staff, but I think it's very important for people to know that there are answers to these problems that you're facing, whether it's, you know, how do I choose the right donor, or how do I talk to my child, or how do I get through treatment and reduce my stress. There are answers out there. And so it's really important to access them because you can get through it. And it's very important to remember that, you know, there was this study done in Massachusetts, you know, years ago when there was a mandate for fertility treatment, and lots of people were still dropping out of fertility treatment. And so the question was, why? If the fertility treatment is covered, why would people drop out of treatment? And the answer was stress. People get so stressed. It is such a difficult experience to have. And if you haven't been through it, it's very hard to understand. And so it's really important to know that you need to find ways to manage your stress. You need to find ways to get through it, and you can absolutely get through it. And as Jay started this story, you can absolutely have the family of your dreams. It may not be exactly the way you pictured it, but you absolutely can have the family of your dreams.
Oh, I love that. Who doesn't want to hear that, you know, when they're going through this? So thank you so much. You know, I adore you. I'll include all of the information in the video, and thank you everybody for watching.